The ship was dying. Commander Thessaly knew this, the way she knew her own heartbeat. She could feel it in the walls, in the failing hum of the engines, in the cold that crept through the corridors like a living thing. The GSV. Harmony's light had been drifting for 6 days now. 6 days since the engine failure. 6 days since hope had started to fade. Around her, 300 Valorians huddled in the emergency sections of the ship, their soft bioluminescent skin casting faint blue light in the darkness. Thessaly stood at the communication console, her long fingers moving across controls that barely responded. She was young for a commander, barely past her first century. Her people lived long lives on their paradise world of Valoria, where the gravity was gentle, the sun was kind, and nothing ever tried to kill them. But Valoria was gone now. It's burned, and they were all that remained. She looked at the star charts and felt her chest tighten. They had drifted into the barren reach. Every spacefaring species in the galaxy knew to avoid this region. It was too close to dangerous territory. Too far from help, too empty, Commander, said her second officer, a tired old male named Kessex. The younglings are asking when we will be safe. Thessaly closed her eyes. There were 47 children on this ship. 47 small lights that would go dark when the life support finally failed. She had no answer for them. Tell them soon, she said. The lie tasted bitter. She turned back to the console and began recording a message. Her voice was steady, even though her hands trembled. This is Commander Thessaly of the Valorian refugee vessel. Harmony's light. We are stranded in the barren reach. Our engines are dead. Life support is failing. We have 300 souls aboard, including 47 children. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. Please. She set the signal to repeat on all frequencies. It would broadcast into the void until the power cells died. She did not expect anyone to answer. No species would risk entering the barren reach for strangers. It was not logical. It was not how the galaxy worked. The signal traveled outward at the speed of light. A tiny whisper in the infinite darkness. 16 hours later, on Earth's moon, a technician named Marcus Chen was drinking his third coffee of the night. The monitoring station was quiet. It was always quiet. Humanity had been reaching into space for 2 centuries now, and they had made contact with dozens of alien species. Most of them wanted nothing to do with the Deathworlders. That was what they called humans. Deathworlders. Beings who evolved on a planet that seemed designed to kill everything on it. High gravity. Extreme weather. Predators everywhere. Poison in the plants, venom in the animals, and radiation pouring from the sky. The fact that humans had survived it all was considered a miracle by galactic standards. Marcus was used to being feared. All humans were. When you grew up knowing that other species crossed the street to avoid you, you learned to accept it. His console beeped. He almost ignored it. Probably just another piece of space debris triggering the sensors. But something made him look. His coffee cup stopped halfway, to his lips. An alien distress signal. Real. Authenticated, coming from deep in the barren reach. He played the message. The voice was soft, musical, and absolutely terrified. A Valorian. He had read about them. Fragile beings from a gentle world. Beautiful and delicate and completely helpless in the harsh reality of space. Marcus set down his coffee and began making calls. Within an hour, the message had reached Admiral Yuki Tanaka at United Earth Navy headquarters. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She listened to the recording twice, her face unreadable. "Where exactly are they?" she asked. "Deep in the barren reach, Admiral. Near Kreth territory." Kreth. Slavers. Predators who preyed on weak species and sold them in markets across the darker parts of the galaxy. If they found the Valorians first, ... Tanaka stood. Spin up the Defiant. Full crew. Combat ready. Her aide hesitated. "Admiral, the barren reach is outside our patrol zone. The Galactic Council has advised against human vessels entering that region. They say it could be seen as aggression. Tanaka looked at him. Her eyes were cold and bright. 300 people are dying out there. 47 of them are children. I don't care what the council thinks, but the political consequences will be my problem, not yours. Now get me my ship. 2 hours later, the UEN Defiant launched from Earth's orbital dock. It was not a pretty ship. Human vessels never were. They were built for survival, not beauty. The Defiant was 300 meters of reinforced armor, heavy weapons, and stubborn engineering. It looked like what it was, a warship designed by a species that had spent its entire existence fighting to stay alive. On board, 200 crew members prepared for departure. They were soldiers, engineers, doctors, and pilots. They were humans. And they had heard a call for help. Captain Alina Vance stood on the bridge watching Earth shrink in the view screen. She was tall, with dark skin and darker eyes. She had commanded the Defiant for 5 years, and she had never lost a crew member. She intended to keep that record. Course locked in, her navigator reported. We'll reach the signal coordinates in 18 hours. Make it 16, Vance said. Push the engines. Far across the galaxy, in the gleaming chambers of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Crix of the Thelian Consortium received the news. The humans were moving. They were heading into the barren reach to answer a distress call from a species they had never met. Crix felt something cold settle in his stomach. The other ambassadors were murmuring, their faces showing the same mix of confusion and fear. Why would they do this? Someone asked. The Valorians have nothing to offer them. No strategic value. No resources. It makes no sense. Crix said nothing. He was remembering the old stories about humans. Not the stories about their strength or their violence, but the other stories. The ones about how they formed pacts with other species. How they protected the weak. How they would fight and die for creatures that were not their own kind. He had always thought those stories were exaggerations. Now he was not so sure. In the void, the Defiant jumped to faster than light speed, a streak of light against the darkness. On board, the crew was quiet but eager. They had trained for combat. They had prepared for exploration. But this was something different. This was a rescue, and humans loved rescues. The Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of displaced energy. For a moment, the ship hung motionless in the void, sensors reaching out into the darkness like fingers searching for something lost. Contact, the sensor officer announced. Bearing 047. It's them. Captain Alina Vance leaned forward in her chair. On the view screen, she could see the Valorian ship. It was beautiful, even now. The vessel was made of something like crystal, designed to catch and reflect the light of stars. But there was no light here, and the ship was dark. It drifted in the void like a broken jewel, surrounded by a cloud of debris from its own failing systems. Life signs? Vance asked, faint but present. Approximately 300. Their life support is almost gone, Captain. They have maybe 6 hours left? 6 hours. Vance felt her jaw tighten. They had made it in time, barely open a channel. The communication officer nodded. Channel open. Vance spoke clearly, keeping her voice calm and steady. Valorian vessel, this is Captain Alina Vance of the United Earth Navy ship Defiant. We received your distress signal. We are here to help. Please respond. The bridge crew waited. Somewhere on that dying ship, 300 aliens were deciding whether to trust them. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was soft and musical, but also shaking with fear.
Oh.
Whoever you are, we have younglings aboard. If you mean us harm, take what you want from our ship, but spare the children. I beg you. The words hit the bridge like a physical blow. Vance saw her crew members react. Fists clenched, jaws tightened, eyes hardened. The idea that anyone would hurt children was unthinkable to them. The fact that these aliens expected it, that they had prepared themselves for it, made something cold and angry settle in every human heart on that bridge. Vance kept her voice gentle. This is Captain Vance. We are not here to harm you. We came because you called for help. That is the only reason. No one is going to hurt you or your children. I give you my word. Another long silence. Then the alien voice returned, and now it sounded confused.
You came.
To help? But why? You do not know us. We have nothing to offer you. We are nothing to you. Vance smiled, though the alien could not see it. You are people in trouble. That is enough. On the Harmony's light, Commander Thessaly stood frozen at her communication console. The translator was working correctly. She had checked it 3 times, but the words still made no sense. Help. They came to help. For no reason. For no gain. Just because she had called, this was not how the galaxy worked. Species did not help each other. They competed. They traded. They conquered. Sometimes they ignored each other. But they did not travel across dangerous space to rescue strangers for free, and yet here was this human ship, solid and real and waiting. Commander Kessex whispered beside her. What do we do? Thessaly looked at the view screen. The human vessel was ugly by Valorian standards. It was blocky and heavy, built without any grace or beauty. It looked like a weapon, but a weapon could protect as easily as it could destroy. We let them come, she said. The human shuttle crossed the gap between ships in minutes. Thessaly gathered her courage and went to meet it at the airlock, with Kessex and 2 others beside her. Her hearts were beating so fast she thought they might burst. The airlock opened with a hiss of pressurized air, and then she saw humans for the first time. They were shorter than she had imagined. The stories made them sound like giants, but they were dense, heavy. She could see the thickness of their bones, the power in their compact muscles. They moved with a grace that seemed wrong for being so solid. It was the grace of hunters, predators. Their eyes scanned everything, taking in details, assessing threats. Even now, even in a rescue mission, they were ready to fight. Thessaly should have been terrified. Everything in her evolution told her to run from these creatures. But then, one of them stepped forward. A human female with dark brown skin and warm eyes. She smiled, and somehow the smile changed everything. I'm Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the human said. Chief Medical Officer. How many injured do you have? Thessaly blinked. The question was so practical, so focused on helping. 17 with serious conditions, many more with minor injuries. Our medical supplies ran out 2 days ago. Sarah nodded and turned to the humans behind her. Get the emergency kits. I want triage set up in 5 minutes. She looked back at Thessaly. Don't worry. We brought enough supplies for everyone. You came into the barren reach, Thessaly said. For us. Your people must know how dangerous this region is. Why would you risk yourselves? Sarah tilted her head slightly as if the question confused her. You called for help, she said simply, as if that explained everything. As if that was the only reason anyone would ever need. More humans came aboard. Engineers with tools and spare parts. Soldiers who stood guard with careful eyes. Medics who began treating the sick with gentle hands. They moved through the Valorian ship like they belonged there. Like helping strangers was the most natural thing in the world. The children came out of hiding first. They always did. Valorian younglings were curious by nature, and these strange, heavy creatures were too interesting to resist. They crept closer, their bioluminescent skin pulsing with blue and green light. A human soldier. A big male with scars on his face and arms knelt down to meet them at eye level. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and colorful. You want some candy? He asked. The children did not understand the word, but they understood the tone. Kind, warm, safe. Within an hour, the Harmony's light was alive again. Human engineers had patched the life support. Power flowed through systems that had been dark for days. Warm air filled corridors that had grown cold, and then the sensors detected something else. 3 ships, coming fast, bearing the markings of the Kreth Dominion. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Vance received the report with cold eyes. How long until they reach us? 20 minutes, Captain. Vance stood. The time for gentleness was over. Now came the other side of humanity. The side that had survived ice ages and predators and wars. the side that never backed down from a fight. All hands to battle stations, she ordered. Those people are under our protection now. Anyone who wants to hurt them goes through us first. The Defiant began to move, positioning itself between the Valorian ship and the approaching threat. Its weapons powered up. Its shields activated. It was ready. On the Harmony's light, Thessaly watched the human ship through the viewport. She did not understand these creatures. She was not sure she ever would, but she was starting to believe they might actually save her people. Warlord Sithrak of the Kreth Dominion had been hunting weak species for over 40 years. He knew the patterns. A disabled ship, a dying crew. Desperate people willing to surrender without a fight. It was easy work and profitable too. The slave markets paid well for exotic species. When his scouts reported a Valorian refugee ship drifting in the barren reach, he had smiled with all 3 rows of teeth. Valorians were valuable. Fragile and beautiful, they made excellent servants for wealthy buyers. And children. Children were worth even more. But now, as his 3 warships approached the target zone, his smile faded. Warlord, his sensor officer reported, there is another ship. It is positioned between us and the Valorians. Identify it. The officer's scales paled. Human warlord. A human warship. United Earth Navy markings.
Nice.
The bridge went silent. Every Kreth knew about humans. The Deathworlders. The species that had clawed its way out of a planet that should have killed them 1,000 times over. The species that ate poison for fun, that bonded with predators. That refused to die, no matter what the universe threw at them. Sithrak had heard the stories. He had dismissed them as exaggeration. Surely no species could be as dangerous as the rumors suggested. One ship, he said. We have 3. Open a channel. The view screen flickered, and then he was looking at a human female. She sat in a command chair, surrounded by her crew. She looked small, soft, not impressive at all. Human vessel, Sithrak said. You are interfering with a lawful acquisition. These Valorians are salvage, found in unclaimed space. They belong to the Dominion now. Withdraw, and we will allow you to leave. Remain, and you will share their fate. The human female did not look afraid. She did not even look concerned. She simply stood up from her chair and faced the view screen. This is Captain Elena Vance of the UE and Defiant. Those people sent a distress call, and we answered it. They are under our protection now. If you want them, you will have to come through us. Sithrak laughed. 1 ship against 3? You cannot be serious. The human smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of something that had spent millions of years learning how to kill. You're completely serious, she said. And I promise you, we bite back. Sithrak cut the channel and turned to his officers. Advance. Weapons ready. Destroy the human ship and take the Valorians. The 3 Kreth warships moved forward in formation. They were fast ships, built for speed and intimidation. Their weapons were designed to disable targets quickly, to capture rather than destroy. They had never lost a fight against a single opponent. The human ship did not retreat. It did not call for help. It simply turned to face them head-on. The first Kreth ship fired. Energy beams lanced across space, striking the Defiant's shields. The human vessel shuddered, but kept coming. Direct hit, the weapons officer reported. Their shields are holding. Sithrak frowned. Hit them again. All ships, concentrate fire. All 3 Kreth vessels opened fire at once. The void lit up with weapons discharge. The barrage was overwhelming, enough to cripple any normal ship. The Defiant flew straight through it. Its shields flickered and sparked. Its hull groaned under the pressure, but it kept coming. And then it started firing back. Human weapons were not elegant. They were not sophisticated. They were brutal. The Defiant's main guns fired projectiles made of dense metal, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. When they hit the lead Kreth ship, they punched through the shields like they were not there. The Kreth vessel lurched sideways, its port side torn open. Emergency systems screamed. Crew members scrambled to seal breaches. What Sithrak stared at the view screen. That is impossible. Our shields should have stopped those projectiles. But the Defiant was not finished. It moved through the formation with terrifying speed, its weapons targeting with surgical precision. Not the crew sections. Not the life support. The engines. The weapons. The critical systems that allowed a ship to fight. The second Kreth ship tried to flank the human vessel. The Defiant responded by spinning on its axis. A maneuver that should have been impossible for something so heavy, and caught the attacker with a broadside that shattered its main. Cannon Sithrak's own ship fired everything it had. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic rounds. The Defiant absorbed them all. Its armor was scarred and blackened, but it held. Human ships were built to take punishment that would destroy any other vessel, and then the Defiant was right in front of them, at close range. Sithrak could see the details of the human ship. He could see the weapons, still glowing hot from firing. He could see the damage it had taken, the burns and dents and scars. And he could see it was still ready to fight. The human captain's voice came through his speakers. Your weapons are disabled. Your engines are crippled. You are not going anywhere. Now I am going to give you a choice. Sithrak said nothing. His claws gripped his command chair so hard the metal bent. You can surrender, and we will let you live. We will repair your ships enough for you to limp home. Or you can keep fighting, and we will finish this. Choose now. Pride warred with survival in Sithrak's mind. He had never surrendered. He had never retreated. But he had also never faced anything like this. One ship. One human ship had destroyed his entire squadron in minutes. Withdraw, he said. The words tasted like ash. Good choice. But before you go, I want you to remember something. The human's voice was cold as the void itself. Tell everyone what happened here. Tell them that those Valorians called for help, and humans answered. Tell them what happens to anyone who threatens people under our protection. Tell them we heard the signal, and we came. The channel closed. The Kreth ships drifted in the darkness, powerless and broken. Sithrak sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his crew worked to restore basic systems. No one spoke. No one looked at him. He had thought humans were exaggerated. He had thought the stories were lies. He would never make that mistake again. On the Harmony's light, Commander Thessaly watched the human ship through the viewport. The Defiant was battered and burned, but it still flew. It had taken everything the Kreth had thrown at it, and it was still protecting them. The human doctor, Sarah, came to stand beside her. It's over, Sarah said. They're leaving. Thessaly turned to look at her. Your ship is damaged. Your people risked their lives. For us, that's what we do. No, Thessaly shook her head. That is not what anyone does. Species do not sacrifice themselves for strangers. It is not logical. It is not survival. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, On our world, there is a saying. The strong protect the weak. It is not about logic. It is about what kind of people we want to be. Thessaly felt her eyes fill with tears. Her bioluminescent skin glowed bright with emotion she could not name. I do not understand your species, she whispered. Sarah smiled gently. Most species don't. But that's okay. You don't have to understand us. You just have to know that we're here, and we're not going to let anything happen to you. In the distance, the Kreth ships activated their backup engines and began limping away into the darkness. They would spread the word. They would tell everyone what they had seen. The Deathworlders had answered a call for help, and anyone who threatened the people they protected would face the same fate. The galaxy was about to change. The Kreth were gone, but the Harmony's light was still broken. Human engineers worked through the ship for hours, patching systems and restoring power, but the damage was too deep. The crystal vessel needed a proper repair facility, something they could not find in the empty darkness of the barren reach. Captain. Vance called a meeting in the Defiance briefing room. Commander Thessaly came aboard, walking carefully through corridors that felt heavy with gravity she was not used to. Everything on the human ship seemed dense. The walls, the floors, even the air itself felt thick and substantial. "Your ship cannot be fully repaired here," Vance said. "You need a dry dock. A real facility with the right equipment and materials." Thessaly nodded. She had known this already. "Where is the nearest neutral station?" "Too far. Your engines will not make it." Vance paused, and something changed in her expression. "But there is another option. You can come with us." "To Earth." The room went silent. Thessaly stared at the human captain. "Your homeworld." "Yes, the Deathworld." Vance smiled slightly. "It is not as bad as the stories say. We have learned to make it comfortable for visitors. We can adjust the gravity in your quarters, filter the light, control the environment. You would be safe." "Safe on Earth?" The idea seemed impossible. Every Valorian knew the stories about the human homeworld, the crushing gravity, the violent weather systems, the poisonous plants and deadly animals, the radiation that poured from the sky because their star was so harsh. But Thessaly looked around the room at the human faces. These people had risked their lives for her. They had fought for her. They had bled for her. And now they were offering to take her people home with them. She asked, "Why would you do this?" Vance was quiet for a moment. "Because it is the right thing to do. And because," she searched for words, "because you called for help? That means something to us. You trusted that someone out there might care. We want to prove that trust was not wrong." Thessaly felt something shift inside her. Something she had thought was dead forever. Hope. "I must discuss this with my people," she said. "But I believe they will agree. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks at reduced speed. The Defiant escorted the damaged Valorian vessel, never leaving its side. During that time, something remarkable happened. 2 species that had never met before began to learn each other. Human. Crew members visited the Harmony's light every day. They brought food, first testing everything carefully to make sure it was safe for Valorian biology. They brought medicine for the sick and tools for repairs. And they brought something else. Themselves, the Valorians were amazed by humans. These creatures ate capsaicin, a chemical that burned like fire, and called it flavor. They drank caffeine, a substance that would stop a Valorian heart every single morning. They had tamed predators, wolves, and cats and other deadly beasts, and turned them into family members they called pets. And humans seemed equally fascinated by the Valorians. They loved the bioluminescent skin, the way it glowed with emotion. They asked endless questions about Valoria, about the gentle world that had been destroyed. They listened to stories and shared their own. The children found each other first. A young Valorian boy named Lyril was hiding in a corridor when a human marine named Sergeant Torres found him. Torres was a big man with scars on his face and arms. He looked terrifying, but he knelt down to the boy's level and pulled something out of his pocket. "You know what this is?" Torres asked, holding up a small checkered board with carved figures. Lyril shook his head. "What?" "It is a game. Want me to teach you?" They sat in that corridor for hours. Torres explained the rules slowly, patiently. He let Lyril win the first few games. And then the boy started winning on his own, and Torres had to actually try to keep up. "You are good at this," Torres said, surprised. Lyril's skin glowed bright with pride. "I like patterns." "Me too, kid." "Me too." In the medical bay, Dr. Okonkwo treated Valorian patients with careful hands. She learned their biology quickly, adapting human treatments to their different physiology. An elderly Valorian female named Tessera had been dying slowly for days. Sarah spent hours with her, adjusting medications, monitoring vital signs, refusing to give up. "Why do you try so hard?" Tessera asked weakly. "I am old. I have lived my time. Save your efforts for the young." Sarah shook her head. "Every life matters. Old or young. That is not negotiable." Tessera survived. Against all odds, she survived. And when she opened her eyes and saw Sarah smiling at her, she understood something important about humans. They did not give up on anyone. Commander Thessaly spent many hours with Captain Vance. They talked about leadership, about loss, about the weight of responsibility. Vance told her about Earth's history, about the wars and disasters and struggles that had shaped humanity. She spoke of ice ages and plagues and conflicts that had killed millions. And yet, through it all, humans had survived. How? Thessaly asked. How did your species endure so much suffering? Vance thought about it. We helped each other. When things were worst, we found strength in each other. We built communities. We protected the weak. We shared food when there was not enough. She looked at Thessaly with steady eyes. We are not perfect. We have done terrible things. But we have also done beautiful things. And I like to think the beautiful things matter more. One evening, Thessaly found herself alone in the observation deck, staring at the stars. The journey was almost over. Tomorrow they would reach Earth. A human joined her. A young engineer named David who had spent days repairing her ship's systems. Scared? He asked. Thessaly nodded. Your world is. A lot, David laughed. It is, but it is also home. And home is not about the place. It is about the people. He looked at her. You are going to be okay. We will make sure of it. Why do you care so much? The question had haunted her since the beginning. You do not know us. We are nothing to you. David was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that Thessaly would remember for the rest of her life. The universe is cold and dark and indifferent. It does not care if we live or die. It does not care about pain or hope or love. But we can care. We can choose to care. And that choice is what makes us more than just animals trying to survive. It is what makes us human. He smiled at her. You called for help? Someone had to answer. The next day, the combined fleet entered the Sol system. Thessaly stood at the viewport, her heart's pounding as Earth came into view. It was beautiful. A blue and green jewel hanging in the black, wrapped in white clouds and shining with reflected sunlight. It did not look like a death world. It looked like a paradise, but she could feel its gravity even from here. Pulling at her with strength no Valorian world possessed, she could see the storms swirling across its surface, weather systems that would devastate her homeworld. She could imagine the predators and poisons and countless dangers waiting below. And yet, somehow, she was not afraid anymore, because the people who lived on that dangerous world had crossed the galaxy to save her. They had fought for her, bled for her, and offered her a home. The Deathworlders were waiting. And for the first time in her life, Thessaly understood that dangerous did not mean cruel. Strength did not mean violence. Power did not mean oppression. Sometimes, it meant protection. She whispered a prayer of thanks to gods she had stopped believing in and prepared to meet her new home. Earth welcomed the Valorians in ways they never expected. News of the rescue had spread across the planet before the ships even arrived. Humans everywhere had watched the footage of the battle, had heard the story of the distress call answered, and they had responded the way humans always did when someone needed help. Thousands of families offered to host Valorian refugees. Scientists lined up to share knowledge and technology. Artists created works celebrating the first friendship between Earth and another species. Donations poured in from every corner of the globe. Food, clothing, medicine, everything the survivors might need. Special zones were created with adjusted gravity and filtered light. Doctors worked around the clock to understand Valorian biology. Engineers built shelters that felt like home. Children drew pictures of glowing aliens and brave spaceships. Commander Thessaly watched it all with wonder. She had expected fear. She had expected suspicion. She had expected the Deathworlders to be cold and harsh, like their planet. Instead, she found warmth, kindness, a fierce, overwhelming desire to help. The Valorian children adapted fastest. They always did. Within days, they were playing with human children, learning each other's games and languages. The bioluminescent glow of Valorian skin became a source of delight rather than strangeness. Human kids thought it was the coolest thing they had ever seen. Lyral, the young boy who had learned chess from Sergeant Torres, became famous when a video of him beating a human grandmaster went viral across Earth's networks. He was 7 years old by human counting. He played like he had been born for it. Torres visited him every week, bringing new games and new challenges. The big scarred soldier and the small glowing child became an unlikely pair. But somehow, it worked. Everything about this situation worked. Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. The Galactic Council watched with a mixture of awe and fear. The Deathworlders had always been unpredictable. They were too strong, too aggressive, too willing to fight. But this was something new. This was not conquest. This was not expansion. This was pure, simple kindness, and that was terrifying in its own way. Ambassador Crix of the Thelian Consortium traveled to Earth personally. He had to understand. He had to see for himself what the humans were doing and why. He met with Admiral Tanaka in a garden overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The water stretched to the horizon, vast and blue and beautiful. The air was thick with salt and the smell of growing things. Everything about this world was intense. The colors, the sounds, the sheer overwhelming presence of life everywhere. Why did you do it? Crix asked. The rescue mission. The risk. The cost. By every calculation, it was illogical. The Valorians had nothing to offer you. No strategic value. No resources. No technology. They were strangers dying in the void. Why did you care? Tanaka watched the sunset paint the water gold and crimson. You are right, she said. By your calculations, it made no sense. Then why? She turned to face him. Her eyes were steady and calm. Because we do not calculate the value of a life. We do not weigh the worth of a child's future against fuel costs and diplomatic risk. That is not who we are. Crix was silent for a long moment. He had lived for centuries. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had negotiated treaties and ended wars. But he had never met a species like this. The galaxy has misunderstood you, he said finally. We thought you were dangerous because of your strength, your aggression, your survival instincts. But that is not what makes you terrifying. Tanaka raised an eyebrow. What does? You care. Crix's voice was soft, almost wondering. You care about creatures you have never met. You protect the weak because they are weak. You answer calls for help from strangers, and you expect nothing in return. And you have the power to do something about it. He met her eyes. That combination is unprecedented. And honestly, it changes everything.
Tanaka smiled.
Good. Spread the word, Ambassador. If anyone out there needs help, if anyone is lost or afraid or alone, tell them to send a signal. We will hear it. 6 months later, a ceremony was held on the steps of the newly constructed Valorian embassy in Geneva. It was a beautiful building, designed with both human and Valorian elements. Crystal towers rose alongside concrete walls. Bioluminescent gardens glowed beside human flowers. Two worlds, coming together in one place, Commander Thessaly stood at the podium, now wearing the formal robes of Ambassador Thessaly. Before her, a crowd of humans and Valorians waited. Behind her, children of both species played on the grass, laughing in 2 languages. She looked out at the faces. Human faces, strange and solid and warm. Valorian faces, glowing with emotion. All of them watching her. All of them waiting. My people have a saying, she began. Her voice was steady, though her hearts were racing. In the void, you die alone. We believed this. We accepted it as truth. The universe is cold and dark, and no one comes when you call. That is simply how things are. She paused, letting the words settle. And then we called and you came. Her bioluminescent skin pulsed with light, bright blue and shining. You did not know us. You owed us nothing. We were strangers dying in the darkness, and you had every reason to ignore us. But you heard our signal, and you came. You fought for us. You bled for us. You opened your world to us and called us friends. She looked at Captain Vance, standing in the front row with her crew, at Dr. Okonkwo, who had saved so many lives, at Sergeant Torres, with Lirel sitting on his shoulders. I still do not fully understand your species, Thessaly admitted. You are strange and loud, and you eat poison for fun. You befriend predators and climb mountains for no reason. You do things that make no logical sense, and then you laugh about it." She smiled. "But I have learned something in my time here. Logic is not everything. Sometimes the heart sees what the mind cannot." She raised her voice, letting it carry across the crowd. "The void is still cold. The universe is still dark. But we are no longer alone. Because somewhere out there, on a death world full of impossible creatures, there are people who answer when strangers call for help. There are people who believe that the strong should protect the weak. There are people who see suffering and cannot look away." Thessaly turned to face the crowd fully, her eyes bright with tears. "You call yourselves Deathworlders, but I call you something else. I call you hope. And I think the galaxy is about to learn what happens when hope has teeth." The crowd erupted in cheers. Humans and Valorians together, celebrating something new. Something that had never existed before. An alliance built not on trade or strategy or mutual benefit, but on something simpler and more powerful: kindness, protection, the choice to care far across the galaxy. In ships and stations and worlds beyond counting, other species watched the broadcast. They saw the humans and Valorians standing together. They heard the words about hope and protection, and something stirred in hearts that had grown cold with the certainty that no one ever helped anyone. The signals started coming. Slowly at first, then faster, distress calls from the darkness. Pleas for help from species that had given up believing anyone would answer. Small voices crying out into the void, hoping against hope that someone might hear, and on Earth. In monitoring stations around the world, human technicians listened. They tracked the signals. They plotted coordinates. They prepared ships and crews and supplies because they had made a promise. And humans always kept their promises. The Deathworlders had answered one call for help. Now the galaxy knew they would answer more. The strong protecting the weak. The dangerous defending the fragile. It made no logical sense. But it was the most human thing in the universe. And one by one, lights in the darkness began to shine brighter.